I dreamed a dream in time gone by.
She delivered the most watched television audition in modern history, generating billions of views overnight. But the dark, terrifying truth behind Susan Boyle's sudden disappearance has been completely buried by the corporate entertainment industry. We are conducting a comprehensive journalistic audit into one of the most unprecedented and explosive viral phenomenons in the history of modern broadcast television. When Susan Boyle, a painfully shy and unassuming woman from a small Scottish village, stepped onto the audition stage of Britain's Got Talent in the spring of 2009, the world was completely unprepared for the seismic cultural shift that was about to occur. The television network initially framed her appearance as a moment of comic relief, actively encouraging the live audience and the panel of celebrity judges to underestimate her based entirely on her modest, unpolished physical appearance. However, the exact second she began to sing, she completely shattered the superficial, manufactured illusions of the corporate entertainment industry, triggering a global viral explosion that fundamentally altered the architecture of the internet. Yet, what the mainstream media completely failed to document was the terrifying psychological and physical toll that this instantaneous transition extracted from her. The reality of overnight fame, especially on a planetary scale, is far more insidious and dangerous than the network cameras ever allow the viewing public to see. Almost immediately after her legendary audition was broadcast to the world, the crushing, inescapable weight of global scrutiny began tearing at her foundational mental stability. Aggressive packs of paparazzi physically camped outside her modest, blue-collar home in Blackburn, Scotland, relentlessly dissecting her every single movement, her wardrobe choices, and her deeply private conversations. She was abruptly shoved into a highly toxic, high-stress environment consisting of grueling international press tour, high-stakes television appearances, and ruthless corporate recording schedules. This incredibly predatory environment pushed her to the absolute brink of human physical and emotional exhaustion, ultimately culminating in a highly publicized, involuntary admission to a private psychiatric wellness facility immediately following the grand finale of the competition. From a journalistic perspective, this immediate catastrophic breakdown exposed a massive failure in the television network's duty of care. The corporate executives were perfectly willing to extract hundreds of millions of dollars in advertising revenue from her viral momentum, but they were woefully unequipped to protect a vulnerable, independent artist from the terrifying psychological whiplash of sudden, unmitigated global fame. The media apparatus treated her mental health crisis as tabloid fodder rather than a serious medical emergency, highlighting the deeply predatory nature of early reality television journalism. The executives had successfully manufactured a superstar, but they had fundamentally failed to protect the human being underneath the phenomenon, setting the stage for a prolonged, incredibly private battle for her own survival. Continuing our in-depth reporting, we must examine a deeply profound medical revelation that fundamentally recontextualizes the entire narrative surrounding her early struggles with global fame. For decades, long before the television cameras ever arrived in her quiet Scottish community, Susan had been systematically marginalized and unfairly judged by her own peers due to a childhood misdiagnosis of severe brain damage, allegedly caused by a brief lack of oxygen during her birth. This devastating, inaccurate medical label forced her to navigate her formative years carrying a massive, unfair stigma, convincing her that her intense anxiety and social difficulties were the result of permanent cognitive limitations. It wasn't until she was dragged deep into the grueling, high-pressure machinery of her international concert tour that elite medical professionals finally initiated a comprehensive neurological evaluation, successfully uncovering the hidden truth. In late 2012, after years of surviving the absolute chaos of the entertainment industry, she was officially diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. From a clinical and journalistic standpoint, This diagnosis is the critical missing puzzle piece that explains why the reality television matrix was incredibly toxic to her baseline neurology. Asperger's syndrome is a neurodevelopmental condition that makes processing highly chaotic, unpredictable, and hypersensory environments incredibly taxing on the central nervous system. When we analyze her highly publicized emotional meltdowns through this newly established medical lens, it becomes horrifically clear that the flashing cameras, the screaming stadium crowds, and the erratic, high-stakes corporate schedules of a pop star were literally the worst possible conditions for her brain to process. She was not acting out of entitlement or diva-like behavior, as the tabloid media maliciously suggested. She was experiencing severe sensory overload and acute neurological distress on a daily basis. And yet, just as she was finally learning to navigate this profound, liberating new understanding of her own neurological architecture, she was forced to confront an entirely different type of betrayal. The very people who were morally obligated to protect her during this incredibly vulnerable transition period were about to launch a massive, coordinated assault on her newly acquired wealth, proving that the most dangerous threats in the entertainment business often come from inside the artist's own inner circle. Our investigative unit now turns to the devastating financial toxicity that frequently infects the personal lives of newly minted reality stars, an epidemic from which Susan Boyle was tragically not immune. Historically, a massive and sudden influx of liquid wealth operates as a lethal, corrosive poison to a celebrity's immediate inner circle, and her brand-new, multi-million-dollar entertainment empire became an absolute magnet for interpersonal exploitation. Following her historic, record-breaking album sales, which generated tens of millions of pounds in gross revenue, bitter financial disputes quickly erupted behind closed doors, aggressively tearing the fabric of her family structure apart. According to deep industry sources and verified public records, specific members of her immediate family allegedly began demanding astronomically large sums of cash, business investments, and personal favors, viewing her viral success not as a triumph to be celebrated, but as a literal lottery ticket to be endlessly cashed. When these aggressive financial demands were not immediately met, the situation rapidly deteriorated into explosive, highly toxic arguments and permanently severed ties, leaving the singer feeling entirely isolated, betrayed, and unmoored from her foundational roots. From an investigative reporting perspective, this represents one of the most heartbreaking, yet statistically common, collateral damages of sudden fame. The very individuals who were supposed to serve as her ultimate protective barrier against predatory industry managers and ruthless talent agents were suddenly the ones fighting viciously over the keys to her financial vault. The psychological toll of realizing that your own family views your artistic talent primarily as a personal ATM is completely incalculable, forcing her to build aggressive legal firewalls just to protect her hard-earned assets from her own blood relatives. This devastating internal betrayal forced her to radically shrink her circle of trust, isolating her within her own immense success. However, while the emotional threats were coming directly from inside her own family tree, an even more terrifying physical danger was actively mobilizing right outside her front door. The toxic combination of immense public visibility and localized accessibility was about to plunge her into a terrifying security nightmare that would force her to completely militarize her daily existence, just to maintain a basic illusion of personal safety. As our broadcast delves into the darker consequences of unprecedented public visibility, we must address the terrifying wave of security breaches that completely shattered whatever fragile peace she had managed to retain in her hometown. The standard, predictable trajectory for an artist who achieves this specific, elite tier of global wealth is an immediate relocation to a heavily fortified, gated compound in Beverly Hills or a private estate in the remote English countryside. However, Susan adamantly and stubbornly refused to abandon her childhood, ex-council house in the small, working-class town of Blackburn. While this decision was deeply rooted in a beautiful, authentic desire to remain connected to the memory of her late mother, it unfortunately transformed her modest residence into a highly vulnerable, high-profile target for obsessive behavior. As her fame reached its absolute zenith, a chilling series of home invasions and severe security threats began to escalate exponentially. We have reviewed police reports detailing terrifying incidents involving obsessed fans, aggressive stalkers, and dangerous intruders who actively targeted her property, with one particularly horrifying security breach involving an unidentified stranger gaining direct, unauthorized access into her actual living room while she was present. For an individual already navigating the complex neurological challenges of Asperger's syndrome, this complete destruction of her personal sanctuary was a deeply traumatizing violation. From a news and security standpoint, it exposed a massive logistical vulnerability. The corporate television networks had transformed her into one of the most recognizable faces on planet Earth, but she was attempting to survive this immense exposure without the standard, military-grade security infrastructure that typically accompanies global superstars. Consequently, she was ultimately forced to heavily fortify her modest neighborhood property, installing heavy-duty security gates, highly advanced surveillance systems, and rapid response panic alarms just to survive in the exact same neighborhood where she had grown up in total anonymity. Her home was no longer a sanctuary. It had been transformed into a heavily monitored fortress under constant siege from the darker, obsessive elements of internet celebrity culture, proving that fame often operates as a highly luxurious prison. Moving forward in our comprehensive timeline, we arrive at the most heavily guarded and closely protected secret of her entire post-television career, a terrifying, life-threatening medical emergency that nearly destroyed her legendary vocal instrument permanently. In the spring of 2022, completely outside the view of the mainstream media apparatus, Susan suffered a minor stroke. This was an incredibly severe neurological event that struck without warning, leaving her physically compromised and struggling to execute basic communicative functions, let alone project her signature, soaring vocal register on a world stage. The media and entertainment press were completely, intentionally shut out of this narrative as she quietly entered a grueling, highly intensive physical rehabilitation program. Behind closed doors, she was fighting a brutal, terrifying private battle, deeply consumed by the very real fear that the voice which had fundamentally changed her life and captivated millions had been permanently silenced by her own biology. From an investigative journalism perspective, the fact that her management team and personal representatives managed to keep this severe health crisis entirely classified for over a year is an absolute anomaly in the modern era of constant digital surveillance and invasive paparazzi culture. It highlights a massive, strategic shift in how she and her inner circle chose to handle her public relations. They no longer allowed the media to consume her vulnerability for commercial profit. She fought through the grueling physical therapy in total silence, demonstrating an incomprehensible level of personal resilience and determination. When she finally chose to reveal this traumatic medical event, she did so entirely on her own terms, returning to the Britain's Got Talent stage in 2023 not as a contestant, but as a triumphant survivor who had literally fought her way back from the edge of physical devastation. This specific chapter of her life firmly establishes that the true measure of her strength was not her ability to hit a flawless high note under the television studio lights, but her incredible, silent capacity to rebuild her entire physiological foundation in the dark, without ever asking the public for their sympathy or their permission. In concluding our investigative broadcast on the complex hidden reality of the Susan Boyle phenomenon, we must critically analyze her current status not as a victim of the corporate fame machine, but as its ultimate, triumphant rebel. Today, Her glaring absence from the mainstream media, the daily tabloid cycles, and the aggressive digital algorithms is not a tragic defeat or a fading of relevance. Rather, it is a highly calculated, brilliantly executed act of self-preservation and personal sovereignty. She has actively, intentionally rejected the manipulative, highly synthetic Hollywood lifestyle that destroys so many reality television alumni. Instead of chasing fleeting relevance or bowing to the relentless demands of record label executives, she has chosen to live entirely on her own terms, residing in the exact same humble Scottish house she grew up in. Our field reporters confirm that she still utilizes the local public bus system, shops for her own groceries at standard community markets, and absolutely refuses to let the corporate entertainment matrix dictate her daily schedule or her fundamental identity. By strategically stepping away from the aggressive flashbulbs and the toxic pressures of endless commercial touring, she successfully executed the ultimate power move. She took back absolute control over her time, her finances, and her mental peace. From a sociological reporting standpoint, Susan Boyle didn't just disappear from the spotlight. She successfully escaped one of the most toxic, hyper-capitalist fame machines in modern television history. She proved to the entire world that you can absolutely conquer the global entertainment industry, secure massive, generational financial freedom, and then simply walk away from the table when the psychological price of celebrity becomes entirely too high to pay. The modest woman who dared to dream a dream actually woke up, analyzed the system, beat the corporate game at the highest possible level, and deliberately chose a quiet, authentic reality over the dangerous, manufactured illusion of global stardom. She remains one of the most uniquely powerful figures in modern pop culture, precisely because she is one of the only superstars who had the sheer courage to tell the world that she had simply had enough.